Welcome back to the programme, Daniel Hannnan.
Thank you, Christiane.
So proud to be British, and of course, a lot of people are saying a new dawn, Independence Day. But the truth is that all day the question has been asked, what is the plan? And we're not hearing it from the main Brexit leaders. We hear the Prime Minister lay out a plan for negotiations and pre-negotiations. What is the plan?
Well, he is still the Prime Minister. So you're, in a way, assigning responsibility without power. You're saying, what do we want to do when we're not yet in office, right?
But so basically you're saying he has to, the guy who lost, has to figure out your plan.
Well, I would have liked him to have appointed one of the Leave campaigners as the person in charge of the renegotiation. I was hoping that would happen today, and then we could have got going with the process. But, I mean, I don't think there's any secret about what the plan is. It's a repatriation of power. We have to, of course, accept the constraint of a very narrow result. 48% of British people voted for no change. We can't just wish that fact away. We have to respect their opinions. 2 of the 4 nations within the UK voted for the status quo. And so we may have to temper what we're doing and go for a more gradual and more phased repatriation of power while leaving some of the existing stuff in place.
So
because we have to listen to both sides.
Okay, so now I'm hearing, you know, a very much softer, gentler version of what you proposed during the campaign. Temper some of the stuff. Like what? Like immigration? Because you yourself have sort of stepped back. So has Boris Johnson.
What have I stepped back from?
You have said that... Let me get my...
Yes, I've said that we want control back rather than numbers down.
No, you have said that maybe we're not... Yes,
and
exactly.
when did I ever say the opposite?
You have
when
said
did I ever not say that? Right, when did I ever not say that?
Listen,
I wrote a book about this.
You've been through all of this on other channels. The reason people voted, the majority of them, and I can play you what they've said,
Christiane,
is to stop immigration into this country. No, backtracking. Okay, maybe that's a U-turn.
Okay, you've accused me of backtracking. When have I ever said anything different?
You have said, and your Leave campaign, and you are the lead spokesman of the Leave campaign, that immigration and the free flow of movement was the sine qua non.
I've never, ever said that. I've written a book called Why Vote Leave, setting out what would happen.
Would you agree that the Leave campaign's main objective, in terms of sovereignty, was to stop the free movement?
Your idea that I've backtracked? Okay. Then people at home can Google this, they can look at what I've said, and they can see whether it's fair for you to accuse me of having done it.
Let me ask you, are you then saying that this immigration is going to be much lighter than you all promised?
I have never, ever made any commitment on numbers, ever. On the contrary, I have said
just on facts, no free movement of
what we said
labour.
is we would take back control. Now, what that means is that a foreign court should no longer get to determine who can reside in this country, who can enter this country, that should be a question for parliamentary sovereignty. We are clear about that.
So you're saying that parliamentary sovereignty could quite easily allow the same number of people to keep coming in?
That will be a decision for Parliament. That's how democracy works.
You have got to be kidding me. What? This whole thing was run on... Can I play for you?
You guys have been shouting racist so long you weren't listening to what we were actually saying.
Did I say that? You retract that right now. Did I say that?
When have I ever made immigration my issue?
Did I say that?
You have accused me of backtracking, and I want you to give me one bit of evidence that I ever said anything different from what you've just quoted.
Daniel, let me play the soundbite. You refuse to put an earpiece in, but I'm going to tell you what they're saying of why people say they voted for this leave, mostly. Let's play.
Why are you so elated?
It's all about immigration. Right? It's not about trade or Europe or anything like that. It's all about immigration. It's to stop the Muslims from coming into this country. Simple as that.
So you think you voted to leave the EU to stop Muslims coming to the country?
To stop immigration.
Right.
But the movement of people in Europe, fair enough. But not from Africa, Syria, Iraq, everywhere else. It's all wrong.
When we first went in, it was for trade only. The governments went and gave us everything to Germany. My parents, my grandparents fought for England to be free, and it's about time we would come back to be free.
Foreigners, get them out, kick them all out. And that's all I've got to say, actually.
So, just tell me what you plan then for immigration, because you know, and we all know, because we've done this endlessly for months. You even said, your group even said that if we had to leave the single market in order not to have the free flow of labour and people, we'd have to leave the single market. Now they're backtracking on that too.
This is a global country, a merchant country, a maritime country. We've always been connected to every continent and archipelago, right? The argument against the EU is that it's in decline and that we can do better raising our eyes to more opulent markets overseas.
What are people
That has been my argument throughout, on every interview, every speech, And I've written a book called Why Vote Leave, where it's all set out. You will not find any argument
back
there.
Boris Johnson,
But listen,
and you did
hang on,
back Michael
Christiane,
Gove, right?
If I was relying on CNN as my only source
Oh,
of evidence, I would think that this was a nativist vote, a protectionist vote. It's the opposite.
The Prime
We're a
Minister
global country,
started-
and we can do better than just a regional
All right,
association.
are you concerned?
That's been the argument right from the start.
About some of the post-Brexit hate crimes, the graffiti, the hurling of insults? Are you?
Come
the Prime Minister
on, and that's our fault.
The Prime Minister started Parliament
That is
today
an
with that.
outrageous question. In every country,
It's
in
an
every
outrageous
population...
country. I am asking you,
in every,
as a politician,
allow me to
are you
answer.
concerned
Of
about
course.
some of the
in
fallout?
every
Why
country
is
you
that
have some
outrageous?
racist idiots. In every society you have some racist idiots. But for you to suggest without any connection that this is somehow connected to the campaign,
Daniel.
that you couldn't have had, that there were no racists in Britain before, that there are no...
Daniel, that's not what I was saying. I said, are you concerned about the fallout and the hate crimes? Again,
But why
I
assume
don't
that it's
believe I used
fallout?
the word racist.
Why assume
now,
that it's
let
fallout?
me ask you this about
Hang on,
Boris
sorry,
Johnson.
sorry. Wait a minute, that was a why did you stop beating your wife question.
No, it wasn't,
Why
because
why
people
is there
have
a
gone into
connection
shops
between
and
the...
they have said,
Yeah.
we voted out, now
And that never happened
go
before.
home.
There were never any
you
racists
haven't
in this
voted
country
out before.
There were never any incidents
Daniel,
like this
let's
before.
not be tautological here.
Hang on.
You haven't voted out
What you
before.
are suggesting is outrageous. What you are suggesting is that there is a
I know what
connection
you're doing
between
here, Daniel.
people who
I
voted
am
for more
asking
democracy
you
and some
if
of these incidents.
If
That
some
is
of
a
the hate
scandalous thing to say without
it is
any
not
evidence of any
scandalous.
connection
We
at
have
all.
the evidence, and I've put it on the
What
air.
evidence? You show me a link between the vote and this bad behaviour.
We will show you the graffiti on the Polish community
So there
centre
are
here.
some bad people,
We'll tell
right?
You, right, okay.
Right.
So
of
I'm
course
just
we condemn that. But
57% rise
that
in hate
got to
crimes
do
since
with
Brexit.
this?
57%
Oh,
rise in
in
hate crimes,
48
according to your
hours.
police. According to the police here, I'm not making it up.
What you're suggesting
I'm just
is
asking
that
you, are you
52%
concerned?
of
You
the
could
country
say
are on a
we call
spectrum
for
that
tolerance.
connects them to this. Well, of course. Why should I need
so
that
that's
goes
all
without
right, fine.
saying? Why
Okay.
should I need to say that?
You won't answer the other one. Now, let me ask you this about Boris Johnson, okay? Who's maybe, at least he's trying, to be the next Prime Minister and party leader. This is what he said in his column, which he's written. He hasn't gone out and made a big vision speech or a big plan speech. He's written it in a column for which he gets paid a lot of money. He said, I cannot stress too much that Britain is part of Europe and always will be. There will still be intense and intensifying European cooperation and partnership in a huge number of fields. There will continue to be free trade and access to the single market. Britain is and always will be a great European power, offering top-table opinions and giving leadership on everything from foreign policy to defence to counter-terrorism and intelligence sharing.
Beautifully put.
You see, I thought this referendum was about disassociating from the EU.
I get that you thought that.
Yeah,
You
but
were
it
evidently
wasn't.
not listening to us.
So it wasn't?
Correct.
It wasn't about disassociating from the EU?
May I tell you what it was about
Please.
without interruption?
Please.
Yes. It was about an internationalist global Britain, a more deregulated Britain, a freer Britain, and a more democratic Britain. One that is interested and engaged with the affairs of every continent, including Europe. I speak French, I speak Spanish, I've lived and worked all over Europe, right? I have absolutely no issue with collaborating with our immediate neighbours. You would have to be insane to be against that.
I understand that.
Right?
How do you expect to be a leader at all these tables when you're not part of the EU? Because they
We're
have
the fifth largest economy in the world. We're the fourth military power. We're one of 5 permanent seat holders on the UN Security Council. I don't think we need to moderate all our foreign policy through Mrs. Mogherini. But I'm sorry, but the implication here that people have just voted for closing doors, for protectionism, which has been a theme throughout, is just the opposite of what we were actually campaigning on.
we'll
We
see
were
then,
making a liberal argument for a global, engaged, international Britain, and we want to look beyond a declining, innovated Eurozone to the growing markets further afield where we have connections.
All right. Well, we will continue this conversation. Daniel Hannnan, thank you very much indeed for joining me tonight.
Thank you.